Chapter 3. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. What profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it.
When we think of the slave trade, the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade often come to mind. But there's another, lesser-known chapter in the history of human suffering, a trade that spanned over a millennium, reaching deep into Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. This is the story of the Arab slave trade, a trade that shaped cultures, economies, and histories in ways we are still uncovering today. The Arab slave trade began long before the European powers set sail to Africa. As early as the 7th century, following the rise of Islam, Arab merchants began to establish extensive trading networks across the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, and the Sahara Desert. The Arab slave trade operated for over 1,300 years. Historians estimate that between 10 to 18 million Africans were taken from their homelands and sold into slavery through this vast network. Unlike the transatlantic slave trade, which primarily sent slaves to the Americas, the Arab slave trade dispersed enslaved people across North Africa, the Middle East, Persia, India, and parts of Europe.
Another exodus for Palestinians. But there's no promised land, just more displacement, more bombing, and more death. This man lost his wife.
There's no life after her. Oh God, take me with her. She's gone and left me alone. Take me with you. Abdullah, take me with you.
The Israeli military is expanding its offensive on Gaza City, calling it a combat zone. But to Palestinians, that means nothing. They've seen every part of this narrow strip bombed over the last 20 months. While many flee, others are being pulled from under the rubble. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Dirt and shock cover the faces of patients, holding hands, the only comfort they have left.
There is no life after today. Damn you, Netanyahu, for what you have done to us. Forgive me, Auntie, I couldn't protect you.
Trans-Saharan slave trade in the Middle Ages. The trans-Saharan slave trade, established in antiquity, continued during the Middle Ages. Paul Lovejoy, the Canadian historian and professor at York University, estimates that around 6 million black slaves were transported across the Sahara between the years 650 AD and 1500 AD. Following the early 8th century conquest of North Africa, Arabs, Berbers, and other ethnic groups ventured into sub-Saharan Africa, first along the Nile Valley towards Nubia, and also across the Sahara towards West Africa. They were interested in the trans-Saharan trade, especially in slaves, as there was a constant demand for slaves in the Eastern Arab nations and Constantinople. The Muslim slave traders referred to these African populations as Zanj or Sudan, meaning black. Arabs would routinely acquire slaves through violent raids, followed by capturing them and sending them on dangerous forced marches across the Sahara to slave markets where they would be bought and sold. In North Africa, the main slave markets were in Morocco, Algiers, Tripoli, and Cairo. Sales were held in public places such as souks.
For the people of Gaza, there is no hope of a ceasefire. They believe no one is coming for them. Only the relentless strikes turning their homes into ruins, and Gaza City unlivable.
12th century Arab geographer Al-Idrisi recorded the different methods Muslim merchants would use to enslave blacks, recording that some would steal the children of the Zanj using dates, lure them with dates, and lead them from place to place until they seized them, take them out of the country, and transport them to their own countries. In 1353, the Berber explorer Ibn Battuta would record accompanying a trade caravan to Morocco which carried 600 black female slaves who were to be used as domestic servants and concubines. When Battuta visited the ancient African kingdom of Mali, the locals vied with each other in the number of slaves and servants they had, and he was given a slave boy as a hospitality gift. Slaves were transported through different routes, depending on their destination. Those headed to Egypt would be carried by boat down the Nile, while those headed to Arabia would be sent to ports on the Red Sea, such as Suakin and Asab. Slaves headed to North Africa would have to take the Saharan trade routes, which had been in use since around 1000 BC. These include routes such as the ones from Tripoli, Gadam's, Gat, Hogar, Gao, connecting modern-day Libya to Nigeria, the Tripoli-Fezzan-Bornu route connecting Libya to areas of what are today Chad, Niger, and Cameroon, and the east-west route connecting Egypt to Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Kanem-Bornu-Zawila was another route to North Africa, as the Kanem-Bornu Empire in the eastern part of Niger was an active part of the trans-Saharan slave trade for centuries, and the trade formed the basis of the empire's prosperity.
In recent weeks, the Israeli military has leveled buildings in the suburbs, including high-rise towers. But residents said on Tuesday bombardment of the city had ramped up dramatically, with heavier explosions destroying dozens of homes and naval boats joining tanks and planes in the bombardment. Abul Abd Zakut said his cousin was cut in half by a concrete block. They don't know how to retrieve her remains, he said.
What did the children do for us to find a head here and a leg there? A body that's been thrown 20 meters? We've been bringing them out since 3 in the morning.
We took out many martyrs and injuries. Rescuer Bashir Hajjaj says. It was difficult to reach the place because of the shelling. Israel says the aim is to dismantle Hamas as a political and armed organization. An Israeli military official said ground troops were moving towards the center of Gaza City, and that the number of soldiers would rise in the coming days to confront up to 3,000 Hamas combatants Israeli forces say are still there.
Male black slaves were used as laborers, servants, and eunuchs. Female slaves were also used for labor, but most would be used for domestic chores and concubinage, i.e. sex slavery. Eunuchs were around 7 times more expensive than non-castrated males. They were used as harem guards, administrators, tutors, secretaries, commercial agents, and even concubines. Due to strictures within Islamic law, slaves would not usually be castrated within Muslim territory, and therefore would be brutally castrated in their home country before being sent across the Sahara. Sometimes slaves were castrated after purchase in North African slave markets. Conditions within the mining industry were notoriously harsh, especially the salt mines of Basra, where tens of thousands of black slaves toiled in extremely miserable conditions, living on insufficient amounts of food. This poor treatment led to the bloody Zanj Rebellion, or Black Revolution. Yaqubi records that both male and female slaves were employed in the copper mines of Upper Egypt. The Carmatian Republic of Eastern Arabia is said to have employed 30,000 black slaves to perform all difficult labor.
عند مشفى الشفاء مجزرة إسرائيلية في هذا الشارع المكدس بالمواطنين والمأهول بالسكان هنا في محيط مستشفى الشفاء. هذه غارة إسرائيلية الآن في هذا الشارع، شهداء وجرحى. الآن شارع مليء بالسكان كما تشاهدون. هذا هو المشهد لاستهداف في غارة إسرائيلية في محيط مستشفى الشفاء في مدينة غزة، تحديدا في شارع الوحدة. هذا هو
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head. Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabaeans, to a people far off. For the Lord hath spoken it.
The Muslim historian Ahmad ibn Khalid al-Nasiri bemoaned the unlimited enslavement of blacks in 19th century North Africa, where men trafficked them like beasts or worse, and where the majority of slaves were Muslims who should have been exempt from slavery because of their religious status. Slaves were placed in shackles from across the Sahara via the trans-Saharan slave trade to the Nile, while dying from exposure and swollen feet. At Kufra, the Egyptian traveler Ahmed Hassanain Bey found out in 1916 that he could buy a girl slave for £5 sterling, while in 1923 the price had risen to 30 to 40 pounds sterling. Another traveler, the Danish convert to Islam Knud Holmboe, crossed the Italian-Libyan desert in 1930 and was told that slavery is still practiced in Kufra, and that he could buy a slave girl for 30 pounds sterling at the Thursday. According to James Richardson's testimony, when he visited Ghadames, most slaves were from Bornu. According to Rad Bader, based on estimates of the trans-Saharan trade, between 1700 and 1880, Tunisia received 100,000 black slaves, compared to only 65,000 entering Algeria, 400,000 in Libya, 515,000 in Morocco, and 800,000 in Egypt.
I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God doeth it, that men should fear before him. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been. And God requireth that which is past. And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. I said in mine heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for